Have you ever had a moment where the life you knew simply evaporated before your eyes? 1 second, you're living a dream, and the next, you're standing in the wreckage, wondering how you didn't see the storm coming. This is a story about that moment. It's about a perfect marriage that was built on a foundation of lies. It's about a brutal divorce, a fight for survival, and a courtroom showdown where one secret witness changed everything. Prepare yourself for a journey into the heart of betrayal, where a woman who lost everything had to find the strength to take it all back. Amelia and Ethan had what everyone in their affluent Chicago suburb called the perfect life. They met in college, a whirlwind romance between the driven business major and the brilliant linguistics student. For 10 years they built an empire of happiness. Ethan soared in the competitive world of a downtown tech firm, becoming a department director. Amelia, a talented translator, chose to build her freelance career from home, creating a warm, loving sanctuary for their 2 children, 10-year-old Lily and 6-year-old Leo. Their sprawling house in Naperville, with its manicured lawn and 2-car garage, was a testament to their success. Amelia managed their lives with grace, juggling school runs, playdates, and her translation work, all while supporting Ethan's demanding career. She believed their partnership was built on trust and mutual respect. She was the anchor for their family, a role she cherished. She had no reason to suspect that the man she adored, the father of her children, was leading a double life that was about to bring their carefully constructed world crashing down around them. The illusion shattered on a Tuesday. It wasn't a dramatic confrontation or an anonymous tip. It was the quiet, sterile glow of their shared family tablet. Amelia was looking up a recipe when a notification from their credit card popped up. Your stay at the Langham has been confirmed. The Langham, a luxury hotel downtown, impossibly expensive and utterly out of place for a family man who was supposed to be at a late-night conference call at his office in the Loop. A cold dread, sharp and metallic, filled her throat. She told herself there was a logical explanation, a corporate booking for a client, a mistake, but her fingers, trembling slightly, typed his name into the hotel's reservation lookup. The confirmation appeared instantly. A king suite. Check-in 2 hours ago. Her heart hammered against her ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage. She needed to see. She needed to know. The drive from the quiet, tree-lined streets of the suburbs to the glittering, indifferent towers of downtown Chicago felt like a journey to another planet. She parked a block away, her breath fogging the cold glass of her SUV's window as she stared at the hotel's grand entrance. And then she saw him. Ethan emerged from the revolving doors laughing. His posture relaxed in a way she hadn't seen in months. He wasn't alone. A woman with sleek dark hair and a predatory confidence in her high heels clung to his arm. Amelia recognized her from a company Christmas party photo. Jessica, from his marketing department. As Amelia watched, frozen in her driver's seat, Ethan leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't a friendly peck. It was a deep, possessive kiss, the kind he used to give Amelia years ago. He then opened the passenger door of his sleek black sedan for Jessica, a gesture of chivalry that felt like a dagger in Amelia's heart. They drove off, disappearing into the river of city traffic, leaving Amelia in a profound, echoing silence. The world outside kept moving. Taxis honked, people bustled past, but inside her car, time had stopped. Every happy memory, every shared laugh, every promise he had ever made curdled into poison in her mind. Who was this man? How long had this been her reality? The drive home was a blur of traffic lights and tears she refused to let fall. She had to hold it together, for the children who were waiting for their mother, blissfully unaware that their family had just been irrevocably broken. That evening, the house felt like a stage set for a play she no longer wanted to be in. The air was thick with unspoken words. Amelia moved through the motions, helping Lily with her homework, reading Leo a bedtime story about dragons and brave knights. Her voice was steady, but inside, a silent scream was building. When the children were finally asleep, she went downstairs to the kitchen, where Ethan was pouring himself a glass of expensive whiskey, the picture of a man at ease. The scent of the liquor, usually a comforting, familiar smell, now seemed cloying and deceitful. "Hello, love," he said, turning to kiss her cheek. She flinched away, the touch of his lips on her skin, feeling like a brand. "What's wrong?" he asked, his brow furrowing with faux concern. Amelia's hands were shaking as she placed the tablet on the cool granite countertop, the hotel confirmation glowing under the kitchen lights. "Care to explain this, Ethan?" Her voice was quiet, but it held the razor-sharp edge of shattered trust. He glanced at the screen, and for a fleeting second, she saw a flicker of panic in his eyes before a mask of casual dismissal slid into place. His reaction was worse than a confession. It was an insult. It's a work thing, Amelia. A client from out of town," he said, his voice smooth as silk. He was lying to her face, so effortlessly, so completely. The audacity of it stole her breath. "A client named Jessica," she shot back, her voice gaining strength. "I saw you, Ethan. I drove downtown. I saw you kiss her outside the Langham." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass, refusing to meet her eyes. The charade was over. "Yes," he finally said, his tone devoid of remorse. "Her name is Jessica. She's a colleague." The admission was so cold, so clinical. It was like a physical blow. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He simply stated a fact, as if discussing the weather. "What do you want me to say, Amelia? These things happen." He was not just a cheater. He was a stranger, a cruel, indifferent man who had been living in her home, sleeping in her bed. "I want a divorce," she whispered, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. He finally looked at her, his eyes hard and cold. "No," he said, the single word a declaration of war. "There will be no divorce. The children need a stable family. I will not have my reputation ruined." The days that followed were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Ethan acted as if nothing had happened, maintaining the facade of a happy family for the children, while treating Amelia with a chilling indifference in private. He made it clear that he considered the matter closed. He would continue his affair, and she was expected to accept it. But Amelia couldn't go back. The trust was not just broken, it was annihilated. A week later, he crossed a line from which there was no return. Amelia was in the kitchen preparing dinner, the familiar rhythm of chopping vegetables a small comfort, when she heard the front door open. It was Ethan, but he wasn't alone. "We have a guest," he announced, his voice booming with false cheer. He walked into the kitchen with Jessica, his mistress, clinging to his arm. She was wearing an expensive dress and a smug, triumphant smile. Amelia stared at them, the knife still in her hand, her mind struggling to process the sheer, breathtaking arrogance of the scene. He had brought her here, into their home, into the heart of their family. "I thought it was time you two formally met," Ethan said, as if this were a perfectly normal social call. Jessica's eyes roamed the kitchen, a silent critical appraisal of Amelia's life, before they settled on Amelia with a look of pitying condescension. Jessica ran a manicured hand over her slightly rounded stomach. The gesture was deliberate, a weaponized announcement. "Ethan and I have some news," she purred, her eyes locked on Amelia's. "We're going to have a baby." The room tilted. The sounds of the kitchen, the humming refrigerator, the simmering pot, faded into a dull roar in Amelia's ears. Pregnant, the woman who had destroyed her marriage was carrying her husband's child and standing in her kitchen, gloating. "You need to get out," Amelia said, her voice a low, dangerous tremor. "Both of you. Get out of my house." Ethan stepped forward, his expression hardening. "This is my house, Amelia. I paid for it. And soon Jessica will be living here with me, with us." He gestured around the room. "Don't fight this. It will be better for everyone if you just accept it. If you file for divorce, I will make your life a living hell. I will take the house, and I will take the children. You have a part-time freelance job. A judge will see that I can provide a better life for them." It was a threat, cold and calculated. He was trying to break her, to leave her with nothing. In that moment, watching him stand there with his pregnant mistress, Amelia realised the man she had loved was truly gone. He had been replaced by a monster. The fight for her children, for her future, had just begun. That night, after Ethan and Jessica had left, Amelia moved like a ghost through the silent house. Every photograph on the wall, every piece of furniture felt tainted. This was no longer her home. It was a prison he was building around her. She couldn't stay. She wouldn't let her children grow up in a house poisoned by such profound deceit. While the house was dark, she went to the children's rooms. She woke Lily and Leo gently, her voice a calm whisper that betrayed the frantic storm inside her. "We're going on an adventure," she lied, her heart breaking with every word. "We have to pack quickly." The children, groggy and confused, didn't question her. They trusted their mother completely. Amelia threw their clothes, a few favourite toys, and essential documents into suitcases. She grabbed her work laptop, her lifeline to a paycheck. Her hands moved with a desperate urgency, every sound in the house making her jump. She felt like a fugitive, stealing her own children away in the dead of night. As they crept down the stairs, she glanced back at the life she was leaving behind. A decade of memories, love, and laughter, now just an empty shell. She buckled the kids into their car seats in the garage, her movements quiet and deliberate, her mind racing. "Mommy, where are we going?" Leo asked, his small voice filled with sleep and confusion. "Somewhere safe, sweetheart," she whispered, her own voice cracking. Driving away from the house, the familiar suburban streets looked alien in the pre-dawn light. Amelia had no destination, no plan. She just drove, putting miles between her children and the man who had threatened to take them from her. She had some savings, carefully squirreled away from her freelance work, and access to a joint credit card she knew Ethan wouldn't think to cancel immediately. It was a small war chest, but it was a start. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, she pulled over at a gas station. The kids were asleep in the back. In the harsh fluorescent light of the convenience store, she bought them juice boxes and donuts, a poor substitute for a proper breakfast. Staring at her reflection in the car's rearview mirror, she saw a stranger, a woman with haunted eyes and a grim, determined set to her jaw. Panic began to creep in. Where would they go? She couldn't go to her parents. They lived in another state, and she didn't want to uproot the kids from school. She had friends, but showing up on their doorstep, with 2 children and 3 suitcases, felt like an impossible burden to ask of anyone. She was truly terrifyingly on her own. Pulling out her laptop, she connected to the gas station's spotty Wi-Fi and began searching for short-term apartment rentals. It was a desperate, frantic search for a haven in a world that had suddenly become hostile. She found a listing that seemed too good to be true. A furnished 2-bedroom apartment in a decent, if unremarkable neighbourhood closer to the city. The rent was steep, but it was available immediately. She called the number, her voice shaking slightly, as she explained her situation in vague terms. "I need a place right now, for me and my 2 children. The man on the other end, a landlord named Daniel, sounded weary but understanding. "Meet me there in an hour," he said, giving her the address. The drive felt endless, each minute thick with anxiety. The building was a clean, older brick structure, solid and unassuming. It was a world away from her spacious suburban home, but it felt safe. Daniel was waiting for them, a tall, serious-looking man in his 40s, with kind, tired eyes. He didn't ask too many questions as he showed her the apartment. It was simple, furnished with practical, sturdy furniture, but it was clean and bright. Lily and Leo, sensing their mother's tension, stayed close to her side, their eyes wide. "We'll take it," Amelia said, relief washing over her. She paid the first month's rent and security deposit from her savings, the transaction feeling both reckless and absolutely necessary. As Daniel handed her the keys, their fingers brushed. It was a small, insignificant moment, yet it felt like the first human contact she'd had in a world that had turned cold and sharp. Settling into the small apartment was surreal. The children, resilient as always, quickly claimed the second bedroom, their laughter echoing in the unfamiliar space. For them, it was still an adventure. For Amelia, it was a fortress. She enrolled Lily in the local school and found a daycare for Leo. She ramped up her freelance work, taking on any project she could find, working late into the night after the children were asleep. The exhaustion was bone deep, but it was better than the suffocating helplessness she had felt in her own home. A few days later, she called her closest friend, Sarah, and told her everything. Sarah listened without judgment, her outrage a comforting balm on Amelia's raw nerves. "You need a lawyer, Amelia. A shark. Ethan will play dirty." Sarah, well connected in the city, promised to find someone. The next day, she sent a text with a name and number. "Daniel Russo. He's the best in family law. Tough but fair." Amelia stared at the name. Russo. It couldn't be. She called the number, her heart pounding. Daniel Russo's office, a professional voice answered. She made an appointment. When she walked into the small, tidy law office a few days later, she came face to face with her landlord. Daniel looked up from his desk, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, followed by surprise. "Amelia, from the apartment on Clark Street?" he asked. "The world is smaller than I thought." Sitting across from Daniel in his office, the professional barrier between them felt both strange and reassuring. This was no longer just the kind man who had rented her an apartment. He was her potential advocate, her shield. "So," he said, leaning forward, his expression serious, "tell me everything. Don't leave anything out." And she did. The story poured out of her. The betrayal, the confrontation, Jessica's pregnancy, Ethan's threats to take the children and the house. She laid out the stark reality of her financial situation, her freelance income a fraction of Ethan's massive salary. She expected judgment or perhaps pity. Instead, she saw a quiet, focused intensity in Daniel's eyes. He took meticulous notes, his pen scratching across a yellow legal pad, his questions sharp and precise. He didn't interrupt, letting her speak until the torrent of pain and fear subsided into a shaky silence. When she was finished, he looked at her, his gaze steady. "He's using classic intimidation tactics, Amelia," Daniel said, his voice calm and even. "He's trying to make you feel powerless so you'll give up. Our first priority is to file for temporary custody and child support. We establish that you are the primary caregiver and we secure your financial stability. He can't just throw you out with nothing." Daniel's competence was a lifeline. He explained the legal process in clear, simple terms, demystifying the intimidating world of family court. As they talked, a different side of him emerged. He shared a small piece of his own story. "I've been through a messy divorce myself," he admitted, a shadow passing over his features. "My ex-wife and I, we fought over everything, especially our son. I know what it's like to be afraid of losing your children. It's a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone." That small confession changed everything. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was someone who understood. He saw her not as a case file, but as a person, a mother fighting for her family. For the first time since she'd seen Ethan with Jessica, Amelia felt a flicker of hope. She wasn't alone in this fight anymore. She had an ally. "We're going to fight him on every front," Daniel promised, as their meeting concluded. "The house is marital property. His affair, while not a primary factor in a no-fault state like Illinois, demonstrates his character. We will build a case that shows you are the stable, consistent parent. We just need to be smarter than he is." Amelia walked out of his office feeling taller, stronger. The war was far from over, but now she had a general who knew the battlefield. The legal battle began, a slow, grinding process of paperwork and procedural motions. Ethan, true to his word, hired a team of expensive, aggressive lawyers from a top-tier firm in Chicago. They painted Amelia as an unstable, financially irresponsible woman who had impulsively abandoned her family home. They argued that Ethan, with his high income and the stable family home, was the better choice for custody. It was a vicious, calculated assault on her character. Daniel countered every move with calm, methodical precision. He gathered evidence, School records, glowing reports from the children's teachers, and testimonials from neighbours who had witnessed Amelia's devotion as a mother for years. He meticulously documented her freelance income, proving she was capable and resourceful. During this time, Daniel began to dig deeper into Ethan's professional life. He felt that a man so willing to be deceitful in his personal life might not be a saint in his career. Men like your husband, Daniel explained during one of their strategy sessions, often believe they are untouchable. Their arrogance can be their biggest weakness. He started with a simple background check and financial analysis. Everything seemed above board, but Daniel had a nagging feeling he was missing something. He decided to reach out to a former colleague, a man named Mark who now worked in a different department at Ethan's tech firm. Daniel met Mark for coffee at a small cafe far from the downtown offices. Mark, a quiet, observant man, was hesitant to talk at first. "Ethan is a shark," he said, stirring his cappuccino. "He's good at what he does, but he's made enemies. He steps on a lot of people to get ahead." Daniel listened patiently, guiding the conversation gently. He explained he was representing Ethan's wife in a difficult divorce. The mention of a divorce seemed to loosen Mark's tongue. "I'm not surprised," Mark sighed. "Things got weird with him a few months ago, especially after he started, after he got close with Jessica from marketing." Mark revealed that there were whispers around the office. Ethan had become secretive, taking hush calls and working odd hours. More importantly, their company had recently lost a major game-changing contract to their biggest rival, a rising star in the fintech world called Innovatech. The loss had been catastrophic and inexplicable. It was like Innovatech knew our exact bidding strategy, our proprietary algorithms, Mark said, his voice low. The CEO was furious. He said there had to be a leak. An internal investigation went nowhere. But the timing. It was right when Ethan started acting strange. A new piece of the puzzle clicked into place for Daniel. It was just a rumour, a piece of office gossip, but it was a thread, and he was determined to pull on it. The idea that Ethan would commit corporate espionage seemed extreme, but it fit the profile of a man with a colossal ego and a fluid sense of morality. Daniel knew he needed more than just a rumour. He needed proof. His chance came from an unexpected direction. He saw an online posting for a short-term legal consultant at Innovatech, their rival company. They needed someone to review a series of vendor contracts, a one-off project. It was a long shot, but he applied, leveraging his corporate law background. To his astonishment, he got the gig. For 2 weeks, Daniel worked part-time from Innovatech's sleek, modern offices. He kept his head down, completed his assigned work diligently, and observed. He quickly identified the CEO's executive assistant, a young, sharp, and slightly overwhelmed woman named Chloe. She was the gatekeeper, the person who saw and heard everything. Daniel made a point of being friendly and helpful, offering to grab her a coffee, helping her with a jammed printer. He built a quiet rapport based on small kindnesses. He learned she had been working there for over a year and was fiercely loyal to her boss, but also overworked and underappreciated. He knew she was his only real chance of finding the truth. One afternoon, as Chloe was complaining about a late-night meeting she'd been forced to arrange months ago, Daniel saw his opening. He casually mentioned the big contract they had won from their rival. "That must have been a huge win for you guys," he said conversationally. Chloe rolled her eyes. "Huge for the company, a nightmare for me," she confessed, her voice dropping. "I had to be here until 2 a.m. to notarize the final documents for a special consultant. My boss was so paranoid he didn't want any record of the meeting on the official calendar." Daniel's pulse quickened. "A special consultant," he prodded gently. Chloe hesitated, looking around the empty office. "I shouldn't be telling you this," she whispered, "but it was so weird. The guy was the head of the same department from the company we were competing against. His name was Ethan. Ethan Croft." Bingo. Daniel kept his expression neutral, a mask of mild interest. "Wow, that's bold," he said. He could see the conflict in Chloe's eyes. She knew it was wrong. Over the next few days, he carefully nurtured that seed of doubt. He spoke about ethics, about loyalty, and about how good people can be put in terrible positions. He explained, without revealing Amelia's identity, that he was working on a case involving a man who was destroying his family, a man who believed rules didn't apply to him. He could see the pieces connecting in her mind. The day before his consulting gig ended, Daniel asked Chloe to meet him for coffee away from the office. In the anonymity of a bustling Starbucks, he laid his cards on the table. "Chloe, the man you saw that night, Ethan Croft, is my client's husband. He's trying to take her children away, claiming she is an unfit mother, while he presents himself as a pillar of the community." He saw the shock and dawning horror on her face. "I know you were just doing your job," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "But what he did was illegal, and what he is doing to his family is immoral. I'm not asking you to break any confidentiality agreements. I am asking you to tell the truth in a court of law, to be a witness." Chloe was terrified. She could lose her job, be blacklisted in the industry, but Daniel could also see her conscience warring with her fear. He was so smug, she said, remembering that night. He acted like he owned the world. Daniel handed her his card. "The hearing is in 3 days. You don't have to decide now, but think about the kind of world you want to live in. One where men like Ethan Croft always win, or one where people like you have the courage to stand up for what's right." He left her with the choice. The fate of Amelia's case and Ethan's entire world now rested on the shoulders of a young woman he barely knew. The day of the final hearing arrived, grey and cold. The courtroom felt vast and intimidating, its wood-panelled walls seeming to absorb all the hope in the room. Amelia sat beside Daniel, her hands clenched so tightly in her lap, her knuckles were white. Across the aisle sat Ethan and his high-priced lawyer, looking confident and relaxed. Jessica was there, seated in the front row of the gallery, her pregnant belly prominent, her expression a mixture of boredom and triumph. She was already measuring the drapes for a life in Amelia's house. Ethan's lawyer presented their case first. He was slick and persuasive, painting a picture of Ethan as a devoted father and brilliant provider, and Amelia as a volatile, emotional woman who couldn't offer the children the stability they deserved. Every word was a carefully crafted lie, a twisting of the truth designed to assassinate her character. Amelia listened, a cold fury building inside her. She wanted to scream, to leap up, and tell the judge about the real Ethan, the cruel manipulator who had threatened and betrayed her. But she held her tongue, trusting Daniel, who sat calmly beside her, making occasional notes on his legal pad. His presence was a solid, reassuring anchor in the turbulent sea of the courtroom. When it was Daniel's turn, he methodically dismantled their arguments. He presented the evidence of Amelia's consistent, loving care for the children. He submitted financial records proving her ability to support them with her growing freelance business. He was professional, respectful, but relentless. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, listened impassively. Amelia could feel the case teetering on a knife's edge. It was one person's word against another's. Then Daniel paused, his eyes scanning the courtroom. "Your Honour," he said, his voice clear and strong, "the petitioner, Mr. Croft, has built his entire case on the foundation of his character and professional standing. He presents himself as a man of integrity. I believe there is a witness who can speak directly to that character." Ethan's lawyer jumped to his feet. "Objection! The witness list is closed." "This is a rebuttal witness, Your Honour," Daniel countered smoothly. "Her testimony directly refutes the petitioner's claims about his own credibility." The judge considered for a moment, her gaze sharp. "Objection overruled. You may call your witness." Ethan looked confused, then annoyed. He had no idea what was coming. "The defence calls Chloe Martinez to the stand," Daniel announced. The courtroom doors opened and Chloe walked in, her steps hesitant but determined. A low murmur went through the gallery. Ethan's face went pale. He stared at her, his mouth slightly agape, the colour draining from his face. For the first time, he looked scared. Chloe took the stand, her hands trembling as she was sworn in. Daniel approached her, his demeanour gentle and encouraging. "Miss Martinez, could you please state your place of employment?" he asked. "I am the executive assistant to the CEO of Innovatech," she said, her voice barely a whisper, but clear in the quiet room. At the mention of the rival company, Ethan's CEO, who Daniel had also subpoenaed, sat up straighter in the back of the courtroom. He had been compelled to attend to testify about Ethan's salary, but was now an unwitting spectator to his own corporate drama. "And in your capacity as an assistant, did you have occasion to meet with the petitioner, Mr. Ethan Croft?" Daniel continued. "Yes," Chloe said, gaining confidence. "It was late one night about 4 months ago. He came to our offices for a secret meeting with my boss." Daniel led her carefully through the events of that night. He had her describe the non-disclosure agreement she was asked to sign, the large cash payment that was arranged, and the sensitive data files that were transferred. "And what were in those files, Miss Martinez?" "It was his company's entire bidding strategy for the North Star account," Chloe stated. "All their proprietary data. He sold it to us." The courtroom erupted. Ethan's CEO shot to his feet, his face purple with rage. "What did you say?" he bellowed, pointing a shaking finger at Ethan. The judge slammed her gavel down. "Order! Order in the court!" she commanded, her voice cracking like a whip. But it was too late. The damage was done. Ethan, his face a mask of pure fury and panic, leaped from his chair. "She's lying! It's a set-up! This is a lie!" he screamed, his voice raw with desperation. He lunged towards the witness stand, his carefully constructed composure completely shattered. "Objection!" his own lawyer yelled, more out of reflex than strategy. The judge's eyes were like chips of ice. "Mr. Croft, you will sit down and be silent, or I will have you held in contempt." But Ethan was beyond reason. He continued to shout, his accusations becoming wild and incoherent. 2 bailiffs moved swiftly, intercepting him before he could reach Chloe. They each took an arm, their grips firm and unyielding. "You can't do this to me!" he shrieked as they began to escort him from the courtroom. Jessica watched from the gallery, her smug expression replaced by one of open-mouthed horror. Her perfect future was being dragged out of the courtroom, kicking and screaming. As he was being pulled through the doors, Ethan's CEO stood up and pointed directly at him. "Croft, you're fired!" he roared, the words echoing in the stunned silence that followed. The man who had everything had just lost it all in the span of 5 minutes. With Ethan removed, a surreal calm settled over the courtroom. The judge looked from the empty petitioner's chair to a shaken Chloe, and then to Amelia. Her expression, once stern and impartial, had softened with something that looked like understanding. She cleared her throat. "In light of this extraordinary testimony," the judge began, "which gravely impacts the petitioner's credibility and moral fitness, the court is prepared to make its ruling." She didn't need to hear another word. She awarded Amelia sole legal and physical custody of the children, with supervised visitation for Ethan to be determined at a later date. She granted a generous child support and alimony package based on Ethan's now former salary, and she ordered that the marital home be sold immediately, with the proceeds to be divided equally. It was a total victory, more than Amelia had even dared to hope for. As the judge's words washed over her, the tension that had been coiled in her body for months finally released. She sagged in her chair, tears of relief blurring her vision. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You did it, Amelia," he whispered. "It's over." She looked at him, her lawyer, her landlord, her unlikely saviour, and for the first time in a long time, she smiled a genuine, heartfelt smile. It was the smile of a survivor. But Ethan's humiliation was not the end of the story. That night, Amelia was tucking her children into bed in their small, safe apartment when her phone buzzed. It was a frantic, almost incoherent call from Daniel. "Amelia, call 911, my address." Then the line went dead. Terror, cold and sharp, seized her. She dialed 911, her voice trembling as she relayed the address Daniel had given her. She wanted to race over there, but she couldn't leave the children. All she could do was wait, pacing the small living room, her mind consumed with horrible possibilities. Hours later, her phone rang again. It was a police detective. Daniel was in the hospital. He had been attacked in the parking garage of his apartment building, beaten severely. The detective said Daniel had identified his attacker before he lost consciousness. It was Ethan. The man who had lost his career, his reputation, and his family had snapped, channeling his rage into a final, brutal act of revenge. Amelia rushed to the hospital, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and a strange, fierce protectiveness. Seeing Daniel lying in the hospital bed, his face bruised and swollen, a white bandage wrapped around his head, broke her heart. He had put himself in harm's way for her family. He couldn't stand that I lost, Daniel rasped, his voice weak. He said I ruined his life. You saved mine, she whispered, taking his hand. In that sterile, quiet hospital room, something shifted between them. The professional lines blurred, replaced by a deep, powerful current of care and connection. Ethan was arrested for aggravated assault, combined with the impending corporate espionage lawsuit from his former company. He was facing years of legal battles and the very real possibility of prison. He was no longer a threat. He was a pathetic, self-destructive man whose world had crumbled around him. During the weeks Daniel was recovering, Amelia became his primary support. She brought him food, kept him updated on his work, and simply sat with him, offering a quiet, steady presence. Her children drew him get-well-soon cards with colourful pictures of superheroes. The roles had reversed. She was now the one providing strength and stability. Their conversations drifted away from legal strategy and into the realm of personal hopes and dreams. They talked about their pasts, their failed marriages, and their desire for a simpler, more honest life. A bond, forged in the crucible of crisis and courtroom drama, deepened into a quiet, tentative affection. The shared trauma had stripped away all pretense, leaving only a raw, genuine connection. They had seen each other at their most vulnerable and had come out the other side, not just as lawyer and client, but as friends who understood each other's scars. Once the house was sold, Amelia received a substantial check. It was enough to start over, to build a new life on her own terms. With Daniel's help, now as a friend, not a lawyer, she started looking for a new place to live. Not a temporary apartment, but a real home. She found a charming 3-bedroom condo in a family-friendly neighbourhood with excellent schools. It was smaller than her old house, but it was filled with light and potential. It was a blank canvas. The children were thrilled. They chose the colours for their new rooms and helped her pick out furniture. For the first time, it felt like they were building something together, not just surviving. The day they moved in, Daniel came over with a housewarming gift, a pizza and 2 bottles of soda. As they sat on cardboard boxes in the empty living room, sharing slices of pizza while the kids played in their new rooms, it felt right. It felt like a family. There was an easy comfort between them, a shared rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. The chaos of the past few months had receded, leaving behind a quiet, peaceful landscape. They were just 2 people who had found each other in the wreckage of their former lives, building something new and stronger from the pieces. That evening, after the kids were asleep in their new beds, dreaming of new adventures, Amelia and Daniel sat on the small balcony of her condo, looking out at the city lights. A comfortable silence stretched between them, filled with all the things they didn't need to say. "I never properly thanked you, Daniel," Amelia said, breaking the quiet. "For everything. You did more than just win a case. You gave me my life back." He turned to her, a soft smile on his face. "You gave yourself your life back, Amelia. You were the one who had the courage to leave to fight. I was just the guy with the law degree." He paused, his expression turning serious. "I haven't felt this hopeful in a very long time." She knew what he meant. She felt it too, this quiet, steady sense of peace and possibility. The fear that had been her constant companion for so long was finally gone, replaced by a gentle warmth. She leaned her head on his shoulder, a simple, instinctive gesture. He wrapped an arm around her and it felt like coming home. They weren't a dramatic whirlwind romance born from passion. They were something quieter, deeper, two survivors who had found a safe harbour in each other. It was a new beginning, not just for her, but for both of them. And it was more perfect than the perfect life she had ever imagined. Life settled into a new, beautiful rhythm. Daniel became a constant, welcome presence in their lives. He helped Leo build a towering Lego castle and listened intently as Lily read her favourite book out loud. He wasn't trying to replace their father. He was simply being a kind, steady man who cared for them. The children, who had been through so much turmoil, blossomed under his gentle attention. One Saturday morning, as Amelia was making pancakes in her bright, sunny kitchen, Daniel came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. He rested his chin on her shoulder, watching as she flipped a pancake perfectly. "This feels right," he murmured into her hair. "Us. Here." Amelia leaned back into his embrace, a smile spreading across her face. "It really does," she agreed. The ghost of her past life had finally faded. Ethan was a distant memory, a cautionary tale. Jessica had her baby and disappeared from their lives, facing her own struggles. But here, in this kitchen, with the smell of pancakes in the air and the sound of children's laughter in the background, was her reality. It wasn't a sprawling mansion in the suburbs, but it was real. It was honest. It was a home built not on illusions, but on resilience, courage, and the quiet, extraordinary power of a second chance. A few months later, on a warm summer evening, Daniel took Amelia and the kids to a local park for a picnic. As Lily and Leo chased fireflies across the darkening field, their laughter like tiny bells, Daniel turned to Amelia. He took a small, unassuming box from his pocket. It wasn't a grand gesture in a fancy restaurant. It was a quiet moment in a life they had built together. "Amelia," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "I know your last marriage ended in a nightmare, and I know that promises can be broken. But I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that some promises are worth keeping. I love you. I love our family." He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. It wasn't a massive diamond meant to impress. It was a testament to something real and enduring. Tears welled in Amelia's eyes as she looked from the ring to the faces of her laughing children, and then back to the man who had stood by her through the darkest storm. This was her family. This was her future. "Yes," she whispered, her voice choked with happiness. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." It wasn't just an answer. It was a promise of her own, a promise to embrace the beautiful, imperfect, and wonderfully real life they would build together. In the end, Amelia's victory wasn't just winning in court, it was rediscovering herself. She learned that true strength isn't about having a perfect life, but about having the courage to rebuild when that life falls apart. The greatest plot twist wasn't the surprise witness, but the realization that the end of one story can be the beautiful beginning of another. Ethan's web of lies ultimately trapped him, proving that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of coming to light. Amelia didn't just get justice, she found a partner who valued honesty above all else, and a love that was stronger than any lie. Thank you so much for joining us for this incredible story. If you were moved by Amelia's journey, please show your support by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel for more powerful stories, and leaving a comment below. We would love to hear your thoughts. What do you believe is the ultimate form of justice when trust is completely shattered?